Welcome to the FSF Popcast live show.
Hello, kids and cadets. Welcome to the FSF Popcast live show. This is our Live at 5. Producer John and I are here to help spread the good word of all things that are fun in our nerd fandom. Now, you will find that our review today, we're going to be talking solely about the Acolyte Season 4. When I say solely, I mean anything and all regarding Star Wars and regarding the fandom that is circling around Star Wars. So there's lots to talk about, not just about the episode 4, but also about some things that have come up over the last week. Now, last week we ended our episode with a little bit of a rant, or about 10 minutes worth of a rant. And I can't say that this week won't be any different, because there's some things that need to be addressed. And frankly, there's some things that we're frustrated with inside of our Star Wars fandom.
Yep.
And no, Kathleen, we were not late. Thank you very much.
YouTube was lagging. I was checking it.
It was not me. I pushed the buttons. I did the things.
He did the things. Oh, Tim, I got something cool.
Okay.
Another Funko.
Ooh, what'd you get?
I got the child.
The child.
Yes.
Yeah.
A friend of mine gave this to me.
I have that one, I think, somewhere. Looking for it. It's hidden somewhere in the Great Wall of Funko. But it's in there, I promise. Oh yeah, it's hidden. But yeah, it's somewhere in the Great Wall of Funko behind me.
See?
But why, John? Why?
Because it's my job to irritate at least one person a day.
Poor Grogu. He's been unboxed. His value has just plummeted. Anyway. All right. So anyway, like I said, today we are talking about the Acolyte review of episode 4 that aired last night on Disney Plus. Now, if you are here, we're glad to have you. But if you haven't watched the episode, this is your chance to know that there are spoilers coming ahead. Click away if you want to. Stick around if you want to. We understand if you leave, but we'd love to have you stick around if you're okay with spoilers. But there will definitely be spoiler talk today with everything that's gone on inside of that episode last night and what's coming up. So anyway, just want to remind you that what we're about to talk about is in fact Star Wars. It's in the title, Star Wars: The Acolyte. And for those who are not feeling, and I gotta be careful, I'm getting close to rant. It's a little early for rant. We're only 2 minutes in.
I've got all night. I got nowhere to be.
Right. So anyway, we'll save that for later. It's Star Wars. We'll just leave it at that. It is very much Star Wars. And we want to remind people of the timeline that we're talking about. We're again 100 years before the rise of the Empire. So we have some things that, along with that timeline, that need to be discussed yet tonight. So any thoughts before we jump in, John, or do we just jump right in?
I'm going to try to not swear at people.
Fair enough. Okay. That seems logical, fair, and I agree with that. Your wife disagrees that you do have somewhere to go tonight. You have a family that likes you and would like to spend time with you.
But we went and saw Inside Out 2 today. I've done enough feeling.
I've done the family thing.
Oh, no, the feelings. Like at one point, Honor was holding my hand. Kathleen's holding my other hand because they're both having feelings and I could not get the feelings off of my own face. Wonderful movie. Anyway.
All right. I have not seen that yet, so I'll take. Actually, Kendall went and saw it as well, so she liked it too. So she said it was very good.
Cool.
All right, so let's just jump right into it. So we start off with the search for Kelnaka. We see these two. We start off with, you got not May, but Osa rather, at the temple and saying her goodbyes, and then she gets dragged into the mission to find May, who's on the planet where Kelnaka is hiding. And her helper here are searching for him, running through the jungle. And if you didn't hear the song "Run Through the Jungle" by CCR, don't know what to tell you, but I did.
Yeah.
Oh, run through the jungle. You grabbed my arm first. You needed emotional support. I'm calling bull crap on that one. Anyway, you were having feelings and you needed to express them. It's okay, John.
Yes,
we all have feelings. So. We'll get back to this more later, but there's a lot of clues in this whole time walking through the jungle or the forest or whatever you want to call it on this planet of Caldor. I think it's I think it was pronounced. I forgot to include the slide with the name of the actual planet on it, but I want to say Caldor. But there's a lot of clues in the conversation between these two as to what's actually happening, who's actually having the conversation, and what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we see a lot of interesting things happening between these two, as they go searching for Master Kalnaka on the planet Caldor. And
the whole Chimere behavior thing, he kind of gives off the whole drunken master vibe, considering how fast he's been able to move in earlier episodes, which in my brain triggers the Darth Jar Jar trope. He's a goofball who's really behind everything.
He gives off the, hey, I'm a manipulator vibe. And it's just the whole time he's talking, and he's talking with May here on about the relationship between her and the master and what the master expects of her and everything else. I was just kind of going, well, that seems rather pointed conversation for a guy who's just a helper. But
the sidekick seems to know a lot about this stuff.
Right. He seems to know more than he should. So, and then, and the reason why they're here is that the helper has delved into this forest that he says that even the biggest, strongest bounty hunters wouldn't even go into, but he has. That also should be a clue.
Right.
And they go looking through it, and so we get to see Kalnaka, and at his homestead here, his ship is wedged in between two trees. The trees have grown up around it. His little homestead there, his ship is going nowhere.
Which makes me wonder, did he crash there, or did he park there on purpose and wait for the trees to grow over it so he couldn't leave?
I almost think it's a little bit of both. Because they said that he turned, I wonder, because they talk, we'll get into this more in a minute here, but they talk about where he's at and what he's all going through, and the fact that they can't reach him. But, but we see that there, which leads to them coming close and finding Master Kalnaka slumped over in his chair with a lightsaber slash across his chest.
Okay, it's not a they. Only May finds him.
True. I rescind my they. Yeah. And with a May finds him, because she walks in, and because at this point, what's kind of interesting is that the helpers wound up in the tree, hanging by a foot. And she tells the helper that she is going to go turn herself into Master Kalnaka, that she wants to, because the game has changed. Having Osa alive changes everything. And that she doesn't want to keep killing. She wants to turn herself in and change her ways, which I was like, well, that's a curveball I didn't see coming.
Right.
I didn't expect that. Honestly, I expected her to, have some. I figured if there was going to be an opportunity for that to even come around, it wasn't going to be just sitting on a stump in the middle of the forest. It would have been after an interaction with Osa, not just thinking about Osa and having seen her alive once.
Right.
So, I was a little disappointed, shall I say, in that turn of events, and how quickly she, into the episode, she was like, okay, I give up. I'm going to go now. And, so I was a little frustrated with that. I was hoping for a little bit more of
some more soul searching, some more
something along those lines, where there was going to be a little bit more exposition as to who she was, why she was, and all, and we have all this stuff from episode 3 that needs to be explained. And I was hoping that her finding that part of herself again and her relationship with Osa would help tie into the explanation that even Soul says to Osa that's coming, that he owes her an explanation as to what happened. Right. And of course, when they get back to the ship, and also made me worry that we were going to lose Master Soul in this episode, because typically when somebody says, I'll see you later, or I'll explain it to you later, nothing good ever happens. And I was expecting very many bad things for our Korean Qui-Gon Jinn. So
yeah, but Kelnaka, his wound is still steaming when they find him, so
it means it's fresh.
Is an understatement.
Yeah, this just happened. It's literally now.
Whoever killed him ran through the room right before May got there and ran out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
so
it is a fresh wound.
Mm-hmm.
But we need to backtrack a little bit and talk about this scene in the at the Jedi Council. Now, this isn't the High Council. This is the Sub High Council, or whatever they're called. This is the Junior Squad.
Yeah. Well,
now,
there's a variety of councils,
right? But we get the clue here in this conversation that we are not going to see, because a lot of people are hoping to see Yoda in this because he's been around for 800 years and all this. I don't think we're going to see Yoda anytime soon or at all in this season of the Acolyte. And the reason I say
creators, but anyway,
what's that?
I believe the creative staff already confirmed Yoda's not in this.
Right. And this episode really confirms it in kind of cements it that because she's Venestra there says that we don't want to involve the High Council because if we do, they have to report it to the Republic Senate, and that it was going to open up a can of worms. She's not a member of the High Council. Yoda is. Therefore, chances of us seeing Yoda, 0.
Yep.
But I do think it's kind of interesting, though, that we the whole point of this show, at least from what my take on it so far, and from what I'm seeing so far, is that we're seeing the decline of the Jedi.
Yeah.
And we're just seeing how they're so fractured, and they've fought all these other splinter cells, these splinter orders, and they've kind of established themselves as we are the rule of law. We are the ones, everybody else is not the Jedi. Which kind of explains the Nihil and a few other things. Mm-hmm. But we also see their own arrogance and we'll handle this ourselves. We don't need to involve anybody else. Now, on the one hand, you could look at it and say, well, she's just trying to make sure that she's got all her ducks in a row. And there could be something to that. But I look at it as more than that. They're afraid to report that something negative has happened because of what it could possibly mean for them or what it would look like to their political opponents.
Right. Because something is trying to tip the balance at this point. Her words.
Right. Yeah.
And, we know eventually that's going to happen, that eventually the Sith take over the Republic and start a war.
Right. But the simple fact that she can sense it.
Yeah.
That there's something trying to tip the balance and she's not alerting the High Council is what kind of makes me go, okay, so this is part of the problem. She's not being part of the solution. She is definitely part of the problem right now. That she's not alerting the higher Jedi Council as to where the issues are and what's happening. So yeah, it's just something to keep in consideration as we go through the rest of the series, that we are watching the decline of the Jedi to the point where the Sith are able to reestablish themselves in what we see in the prequel era. So far, I think that portion of the story, they're doing a good job of detailing and explaining. And they're not necessarily showing it so much with words, but we're seeing it with actions and how they handle different situations because of their, they use the word hubris is used in their own hubris. And so we're seeing that right now. There's my $10 word for the day. You're welcome. So, but this scene also led to probably one of the bigger issues in the post episode reviews.
Yeah.
And that is the presence of this dude.
Yep. Ki-Adi-Mundi.
Yes. What the heck is Ki-Adi-Mundi doing in this scene?
He's on this council. He's part of this little advisory committee, whatever,
Okay, so a lot of people are now. I'm going to set this up for you, and I'm going to let you explain it. I'm going to explain the complaint, and I'm going to let you take it from there. The complaint is that many people feel that this breaks canon, and that Ki-Adi-Mundi was not even born yet. So why is he in this scene as an adult? And go.
Okay, so his story was first explored, and I think it was the 1998-99 Star Wars comic series, where we find out Saurians, not only do they have 2 brains, which is why they have cone heads, but they also have a birth ratio of 30 females to every male. So he's the only Jedi who's allowed to get married and go home and visit his wives.
wives, because he's got like
Yes.
7 of them.
4 wives, 7 daughters. Anyway,
okay, I knew there was a 7 in there somewhere.
But he was supposed to be about 70 years old, according to stuff that was written before 2012, before the October 2012 acquisition of Lucasfilm by Disney. Which means anything that was written during that means nothing. It doesn't mean anything. It's not worth the paper it was written on. Since it's all made up anyway, Disney decided to start making up new stuff and ignore his age.
Okay.
And apparently,
so what you're saying is that his birth year was part of the EU, the expanded.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And apparently the Wikipedia editors caught on to this. And we're going to get into more about Wikipedia later. And
yes,
just
we are.
Updated his age on the the current canon side of they're listing, because they have legends and they have canon. They did not change the legend side. They left that intact. They're respecting that material, but they updated the new information to reflect that, hey, this guy was around before he was supposed to have been born. Now, there is one side argument that could be made, because there is a 2013 Topps trading card series, came out in August 2013, that lists his age as being 70. But that was made under contract that existed before the Disney acquisition, meaning it is essentially EU and doesn't matter.
Fair enough.
So people are upset about make-believe stuff.
Okay. So canon has not been violated.
No.
Canon is actually being kept.
Yes.
And yeah. Okay. All right. Which is kind of how I felt last night. It took me a couple minutes to kind of wrap my head around that, because as soon as he popped up on screen, I was like, that's Ki-Adi-Mundi.
Yeah.
I had to pause the TV for a second, because I had to wait for my brain to kind of spin it back up. But I was like, why is he here? Why is he on this screen? What is going on? So
he's the one in Phantom Menace who says that the Sith have been extinct for a millennium.
Right, which has got a lot of people up in arms. So he said this. Why is he here? And
right,
is he a traitor?
There's some options there. Either what we're dealing with in the show are not Sith, or somehow he doesn't find out that they're Sith, or my personal favorite, because of the sideways glances between Mace Windu and Yoda during that scene in Phantom Menace, there's a Jedi cover-up.
Wait a minute. The Jedi would never cover anything up. Oh, wait. They covered up a whole lot of crap in episode 1 and 2. Never mind. Okay. Yeah. Remember when Yoda said, we'll just keep this to ourselves?
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah. And when Obi-Wan said, well, it's true from a certain point of view.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The Jedi have long had a history of covering things to benefit themselves.
They are the good guys, but they are not perfect.
Right. They are not the good guys, but they aren't the bad guys. They're
just the guys.
They're just the guys. They're the guys who do some good things and have some bad ideas.
Yeah.
Also, do we know his species life expectancy?
Let me see.
John is pulling out the books. We made him get out a book, everybody. Oh my God.
Yes. Yeah. Old book. Let's see. Davronian, Defel, Colicoid, Chiss, Chevin. I should have looked this up beforehand. I figured you would ask. Surian. Age in years. Child. They live about 65 to 80 years. Based on the old Wizards of the Coast Ultimate Alien Anthology, which is also not canon.
Right there. So yeah. So
I love that wife.
But are those books canon? No, that book is not canon. So we're trying to gain as much knowledge and information about this as we can. Now, Leslie Headland did say in interviews before this that they were going to use very little Star Wars characters. They would bring in some from the EU, and that there would be a cameo or two of characters that we were familiar with, but it was going to be a limited amount. So Ki-Adi-Mundi is one of them. Yeah. And I'm curious to see what else they do. But this doesn't break canon, guys. It's an explanation of canon. You can call it a retcon if you want, but that canon that you're clinging onto was part of the EU, which was done away with and is now just the expanded universe. So like it or lump it, that's where we're at. Okay. I'm not going to keep harping on that, but that's pretty much where we're at on that one.
Yeah.
Which leads us to this little fella, the sea otter of the Star Wars universe.
Basil.
Yeah. He came on the screen. I was like, oh, okay. And he's a tracker. He sniffs things. Now, the only thing I'm wondering about is now he's tracking at this scene. He's tracking Kelnaka. He's sniffing something of Kelnaka's. Kelnaka has been missing for however long. Where did they find? That's one of those things. It's just those little tiny.
Yeah.
I'm gonna call it a plot hole, loophole, whatever.
Or maybe the Jedi Council, keeps a scrap of everybody's robes in storage just for tracking purposes. Vacuum
It's
sealed.
entirely, yeah. It just kind of drove me nuts.
Yeah.
That's one little thing. I was like, where do they get something of Kelnaka's for him to sniff? But yeah, he was all about it. He smelled Kelnaka's robes and he was off and running. I did have to laugh last night because they showed the scene of the mountains and all of a sudden I was like, oh, look, it's the Fellowship of the Ring. They're all kind of following each other.
Oh, yeah.
Tell me I'm wrong. They're all in robes.
No.
It's like a whole bunch of tree elves following following a space otter. But yeah, he's a noisy little fella, especially when he meets May.
Oh yeah.
So doesn't really talk, but he does have quite the so.
Yep.
Kathleen says, I love him. He's my new favorite Star Wars character. This is one of the things that Star Wars has always been really good at. They're really good at she's doubling down in all caps. She's now yelling at us that she loves him. Fantastic. One of the things that Star Wars has been always been good at is bringing in a cool droid somewhere, somehow. Let's reference R2D2. There's BB-8. There's Pip on Osa's hip. I really like him. And it always has cool, cute little creatures.
Yeah.
Porgs are friends, not food. And yeah.
Okay, Kathleen, if you love him so much, I will find stats for his race. And the next time you need to make a character, whatever happened to Edna, you can play one.
In other words, he's going to kill Edna in our RPG. So just so that can happen. Okay. He talks. You just don't understand.
A little furry thing.
Yeah. So that's going to happen. That's John. I'll have my couch open and ready for you. So, but he's a cool little creature, and I'm curious how much more we're going to get to see him. And she might actually be okay with it. I get to be a space otter. So,
all right.
Goodbye, Edna. All right.
Evil happy dance over here.
Right. Yeah. So anyway, that leads us to all of our Jedi pulling out their lightsabers, sparking them up because Osa is in the field having an interaction, because now these guys are all outside Kelnaka's house. They know that May is inside. They're trying to get May to come out. And all of a sudden I love Basil. Yeah, you're not alone. You're not alone, Jesse. That's Jesse from Crusher Convo. Go give them a follow. Jesse's got a really cool show over there. But so we have like I said, May's inside. Osa is outside with the Fellowship of the Jedi and the Fellowship of the Saber. I think that's what I'm going to call them.
Fellowship of the
Saber.
Jedi.
Yeah, Fellowship of the Saber.
Ooh.
So yeah. Ooh, that's a really. And we're going to use that name later for something else too. Anyway, so
play the campaign next.
Yeah. That's going to be a thing. She loves Basil, but she loves Pip more. Yeah, Pip is really cool. I love the fact that Pip got annoyed with Basil and sprayed him with whatever that was. He was like, yeah. And I'm done with you. Psst.
Pip is the best of both worlds. He's a droid from Star Wars and a tricorder from Star Trek merged into one magnificent character.
You're not wrong.
I know I'm not wrong, but it's nice
You're
to hear.
Not wrong. But yeah, so we have these guys. They're all standing outside. They've all sparked up their sabers. We got green, blue, and yellow.
Wait.
Yes?
According to George, there were only 3 colors for lightsabers. They were blue, green, and red. He made an exception for Samuel L. Jackson. So according to George, there are no yellow sabers. But he sold the franchise, so I don't care.
Exactly. Bingo. I was waiting for that part to come. All right, and then why do they have all their lightsabers sparked up? This dude.
Oh, I love this design.
Right? So I'm watching this in the scene, and all of a sudden you see him descending, just floating down.
Reminded me of Alien. You know, the
right?
first time the xenomorph drops in behind somebody. Oh my gosh.
Very slowly and quietly, just dropping down.
Yeah.
And yeah, remember we said that we're going to talk about that opening slide a little bit more. Well, this is the helper. I guarantee it. It's the helper. Kathleen says the old Star Wars can't answer the phone right now. Why? Because it's dead.
She's also currently wearing a shirt that says, "Hi, it's me. I'm the problem. It's me." So
that's also, if you know Kathleen, the accuracy of that is accurate. So, but that's why we love her. I haven't decided yet, but we'll get to that later.
I love this helmet design. You know, because the back of it kind of fins out a little bit. It reminds me of Vader. But
right.
The cracks remind me of Kylo Ren's helmet after it's remade.
Correct.
So it's a little bit
kind of freaking me out though.
The teeth, yeah.
The zipper design, teeth design, whatever you want to call it across the front there, that does kind of weird me out a little bit, and it makes me kind of go,
right. Which also lends itself to the alien motif.
If Jigsaw was a Sith.
Jigsaw or Slipknot or whatever. Somebody in the costume department has been into some dark stuff, and I love it.
Yeah. Now, I do like the fact that they get ready to attack, and they tell Osa to stand aside, and just with a flick of his wrist, she goes flying. She got yeeted off to somewhere else.
Yeah.
And then he has enough force power to force push the entirety of the Fellowship of the Sabers backwards.
That's like Star Killer level power.
That, you know what? That's exactly what I was thinking last night when they did that. Because now some of the things that we've always talked about with Star Killer, who is, from Force Unleashed video game, Sam Witwer's character in that game, is that he's too overpowered, and it would be impossible to bring him on camera without dialing down his skill set, his power set. But this is an area last night with this whole force push thing that we see here would be an accurate description, or I think a display of some of the power that Star Killer had. We're seeing it on screen with this dude, whoever he is, whatever his name is. We're just going to call him the Master for right now, because that's the only thing we know him by. But yeah, this is the helper. The helper is the Master. The helper killed Kelnaka, and he is here to kill everybody else. And then the scene stops.
Right.
The credits start. We're 28 minutes in. I'm screaming at my television because it's only a 28-minute. I was all right. So out of all the things, I had a couple of distinct issues last night with the episode. Here's an example, kids, of how you can be unhappy with something in Star Wars, but yet not be toxic about it. Okay. So here it is. I was unhappy with the runtime. Very unhappy. One of the biggest things and complaints I have about Star Wars shows as of late, whether we're talking about Book of Boba Fett, Obi-Wan, whatever it is, there's a lack of consistency in the runtime of the episodes.
Yeah.
Part of that reason is because they don't have to conform to typical airing standards. They don't have to have it set for commercials, all these different things, because it's being set out to a streaming service. So the problem is that there's not typical runtimes for them to have to follow. They don't have to hit a 30-minute block or a 60-minute block. So they're just putting it together however they want. And for the most part, that's okay. But it frustrates me when we've been waiting for Star Wars episodes for this long, and everything's going on. We get a 28-minute episode. A sub 30-minute episode is unacceptable, in my opinion. For something that's like this, where we're looking to this show for explanation of people, places, and things that we haven't seen, that we don't know, and there's so many unresolved questions. You can't tell me that they couldn't have used another 20 minutes on that episode to help explain, to see what was going on with Saul, have Saul sit down with Osa and explain to her what happened back on the other planet, Breadnought. I know it's not Breadnought, but I can't remember the name of it, but that's all I can remember it as. And the pacing of the show up to that point, I have a problem with that as well.
Mhm.
The pacing was either slow on the Jedi side or hectic on the May and Helper side. And, because they're running through the jungle doing all these things. And every time it looked like on the Jedi side that things were going to peak up and the story was going to pick up in speed and timing and all this, the brakes were hit and it slowed right back down again. So I have frustration with the pacing of the episode. Some of the some of the writing of the episode bugged me a little too. Some of the conversation was very blasé, and it was just stock filler conversation so they could put something on screen, and then the runtime. So I did have 3 pretty good sized issues.
And from a storytelling perspective, Osha having that conversation with Jackie that, well, I'm just going to skip, I'm gonna, and then the very next scene changes her mind, says, well, I'm not going to wear that. And then the very next scene, she's wearing it.
She's wearing that.
Yeah, we could have been with the Padawan.
Or at least have some explanation how she got from here to here to here, not just cutscene and there it is. Jesse says she didn't really care for the episode until the last 5 minutes. Yeah, the last 5 minutes got real exciting real quick, and then curtain walls stopped. Yeah. She also says, I wondered if Osa is really the chosen one for the dark side, and they just used May this whole time to get Osa. I mean, that's a very, very cool thought, Jesse. I like it. I honestly hadn't thought of that. And May could just be the bait because Osa's stronger with the Force. I mean, that's a very cool thought. And then Kathleen says the next 3 episodes will be so fast, but when they are all up and we can binge it, we won't notice. I'll still complain every time I come to episode 4. I'm not going to lie. I'll be still mad at it.
Just hit play for episode 5.
Yeah, exactly. She didn't want to wear it. You saw the body language. Well, true. I mean, it was pretty obvious that she didn't want to, and that she wasn't being, and that she wasn't returning as a Jedi. That was made clear. That she was just coming along as a civilian. That's why she didn't want to wear the civilian robes. Right. But that's where the scene ends. That's where the episode ends, and roll credits. So, if you didn't complain, Tim, we'd be concerned you are dead. Okay, but I complain, but I'm able to move on. I'm not sitting here,
You're an adult about your complaints.
Exactly. I let people like what they like, dislike what they dislike, and that's fine. You can have those complaints. That's part of it. I don't have to like everything that comes out in the fandom, but I don't have to be a dick about it either. Yeah. Anyway, and speaking of being a dick about it, there's this.
Yeah. Wikipedia.
Yeah, I'm going to read this. I'm going to read this word for word real quick. Okay. Because Wikipedia had to post this last night because they changed the canon date on Ki-Adi-Mundi.
Yeah.
And it says, we aren't going to mince words on this one. If your response to an editor adding a date to an article on Wikipedia is to tell him that you hope they and their pets die, you are not a Star Wars fan. Hate like that has no place here, and you are not welcome in our community. Right. And just to double down on that, you're not welcome in my community. If that's who and what you're going to be, I have no use for you.
Yeah, there was also a tweet from the Peter Mayhew Foundation. You might recognize the name Peter Mayhew. He was Chewbacca,
the original.
Yes. So that foundation posted, "Let's learn from Star Wars history. Hate over the Phantom Menace created real harm to the humans behind the characters like Ahmed Best and Jake Lloyd. You have every right to like or dislike a thing, but acting like a bully is a toxic choice. Choose kindness instead."
Boom. Spot on, word for word.
And that's all we're asking for. I mean, if you dislike, we criticize the show here. There are things we didn't like. The pacing was off. The storytelling was a little off, But fear leads to hate leads to suffering. Fear leads to anger. Anger leads to hate. Hate leads to suffering. Yes. So if you want to suffer,
it's still on the screen there, Grand Zero 12. And yes, there is no place for hate over Star Wars. You can dislike Star Wars, but spreading hate from fan to fan, there's no room for that. There's no place for that. There's no place, not just in Star Wars. You go to Star Trek, you go to Stargate, Firefly, whatever the fandom is. There's no room for any of that anywhere. Life's hard enough without somebody being a complete Satchel or Richards over. I still love that. Over their make-believe fandom, so you can hate the Ewoks. I'm not exactly a big fan of the space teddy bears. the murder bots.
Right.
Murderous Teddy Ruxpin, I don't not really fan, but yeah, saddened but not shocked. Yeah, that's exactly it is. Yeah, it's crazy out in these internet streets. You're not wrong. You're
And
not wrong at all.
unfortunately, we live in a reality where for some reason hate and anger get more attention than love and kindness. And so
Which is crazy, which is just sad.
it's a really sad statement about the human condition right now. But we have almost national coverage. I mean, people are writing in Forbes about how Star Wars fans are threatening to kill each other practically. And like, we don't need this. We want to just enjoy the nerdy things we like. We don't need another satanic panic over Star Wars. I did it once. It's not fun. Let's not do it again. Just be nice to each other. I don't like the thing, so I'm going to leave it alone. Or I don't like that part of the thing. I'm going to openly talk about it, but also be open to other opinions.
And here's the thing. If you're a big fan of something and they're able to make a Funko Pop out of it, yeah, it's make believe.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well,
and
I mean, sometimes they make real people, but
Well, they do, but you know what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
Yeah, they have Metallica ones and band ones and all these. Oh, I found a Pearl Jam set the other day. Great, googly muggly. Oh, but yeah,
basically got one for free. So I mean,
yeah. So I mean, and as Kathleen says, I don't gatekeep, but this is a time and place I'll throw up a gate. You don't belong in this fandom if you're threatening others. That's not gatekeeping, Kathleen. That's just practicality.
Yeah.
There is so much hate and venom right now in the Star Wars fandom for anyone who has a countering opinion or feeling. And it's sad because Wikipedia didn't even have a countering opinion. They edited an article to match the existing canon as it's being shown to us.
Yeah.
That's all they did.
Yeah.
They didn't say, "Oh, we're the ones doing it." And even if they were the ones doing it, that type of response is just insane.
Right.
Just absolutely insane.
I'm embarrassed by this, actually.
Exactly. I'm embarrassed for them. You can go out there and if you want to be unhappy with something that's Star Wars because it's A, too woke, B, it's too diversified, C, your aunt's uncle's sister's cousin wasn't a fan of Kathleen Kennedy either. Whatever. I don't care. That's fine. If you want to do that, we said this last week. Don't yuck somebody's yum just because you can. And don't go out there and trash them. Physical, personal attacks are never acceptable. No. Attacking somebody personally and calling them names and wishing them death because they liked something or in the Star Wars fandom. Oh my God.
Yeah.
I went through this once with Phantom Menace.
Mm-hmm.
I am scared to think of what it would have been like had the internet been like back then, what it's like today. Had we had the internet access back when these movies first came out, and the internet would have been as strong and as important as it is today, that scares me to think of where things could have gone and what would have or could have happened.
The Force.net's message boards were bad enough. We didn't have anything like Twitter. We didn't have YouTube. If you wanted to make a fan film, you had to find a website to host it. But now it's insane.
You just go to Twitter,
X.
or X, Twitter. I don't care what Elon Musk wants to call it. It's Twitter, and he is that
he's the head Twitter.
You want to hate something, hate Twitter. Twitter is an absolute dumpster fire of low personalities and morality. It's just, and as Kathleen says here, if you aren't a fan of Kathleen Kennedy, please go to her IMDb and hate on all the hundreds of other projects she's been associated with. If you haven't looked at it, her resume of things that she has been associated with because she doesn't know what she's doing, apparently, and you get her to return her Emmys too.
Yeah, I'm not talking new indie. I'm talking original indie.
Yeah,
she was part of that.
The original 3, but she doesn't know what she's doing. She's ruining Lucasfilm. She's
For anybody who doesn't understand sarcasm, that was it.
That was big time. .net. Gosh, there are still .net accounts out there, Kathleen. Shush. So anyway,
yeah.
So
all these hate spamming accounts, all these YouTubers and Twitch streamers, spitting out their hate and everything. They get hundreds of thousands of views, for which they get paid very, very well by their respective platforms. So they are basically making
Getting paid
money.
to hate.
Yes, but I guarantee you that in order to keep up with everything, they're still going out and buying current merchandise and books and physical copies because, they need to know their material. So really, whoever it is that you're watching has posters of Ray up in every room except for the one they stream from. I guarantee
so. I hope so. Was Twitter ever a good spot for fans? It seemed like there was a time when it was worth going on there. Twitter was fine for quite a while. And with the change of ownership, a lot of the safeguards and things that were put into place by the old guard have been stripped away.
Yep.
And there's been a steady decline on Twitter, which is one of the reasons why we very shortly here will be closing our Twitter account and posting exclusively to Threads. So, it at one time was good and is now currently a dumpster fire. Yeah. Kathleen says, was that back when the internet screamed at you instead of people screaming at the internet? Yes.
We got screamed at enough before we even got to use it, so we just moved on.
Did you lads answer your poll question? The 5 choices of if you love the series, hate the series, and the other options in between. I'm somewhere in between really liking it and loving it. It all depends on the episode.
Yeah.
And I say that with all seriousness because episode 4, I just mentioned about how the runtime and there were some writing issues that really kind of irked me. If I would have asked her last night, my poll response would have been annoyed, but that's a whole different thing.
I'm still really enjoying it. I think it's, some of the best Star Wars we've gotten, but my alternative right now is Young Jedi with a 5-year-old. So, I mean, of the two, this is more my speed.
And then she's Granzier says, when Twitter got a new owner, it's like when the Commonwealth and Andromeda went belly up.
You're not wrong.
You're not wrong. You're really not. So there's that. But anyway,
fandoms.
Right? So guys, the long and the short of it is, don't gatekeep. Let people like what they like, love what they love. And if you don't like something, don't yuck their yum. Don't be a bag of dicks about it. Move along and just call it a day, man.
Yeah. Go relax. Touch some grass.
Oh, yeah. We have so
Listen to Lulu a couple of times.
There's some people who really need to go touch some grass. Like, holy cow. Just get in touch with reality. And we have to remember that this is fiction. This doesn't really exist. There is no
characters.
There is no force. There is no galaxy far, far away. There is no Luke Skywalker, no matter how unimportant John says he is.
We'll come back to that later. I have more.
A pack of peckers. Oh, Jesus, Kathleen.
Oh, I love that woman so much.
A wallet of weeds. Okay.
Hard to remember. I'm going to call you Wee Wee instead.
We have officially jumped the rails on this. But anyway,
we're smiling. We're having a good
time. We're having fun anyway. So the long and the short of it is, guys, just be kind to one another. This world needs kindness right now more than anything. We need to be kind to each other inside of the fandom. We need to be kind to each other, to people outside the fandom. This is all make-believe. And let people enjoy their make-believe. Enjoy what you enjoy, the make-believe, and let others enjoy what they enjoy. Honora says hi. Hi, Honora.
And yeah, there are way more important things to be angry about than make-believe.
For sure.
Like,
yeah, absolutely.
I'm not going to get into that, but there's so much. This is supposed to be.
She loves you.
Mwah, mwah. It's a distraction. We're having fun. We're being goofy. We go outside and hit each other with sticks and make the noises. Oh, until we got our sabers from level up sabers, because they're better than a stick. But anyway,
see that right there? Level up sabers.
They're better than theory sabers too.
Yeah, well, that wouldn't take much.
Yeah, better price at least. Might be the same supplier.
This is better than a theory saber. So anyway, yeah. And on that note, before I go on to another rant about that tool shed, we're going to call it a day and say thank you for checking in. go be kind, enjoy one another, enjoy the fandom, and we'll be back next week, Wednesday, for yet another breakdown, review, and possible rant, depending on how many people decide to be, well, people over the next week. So, all right, guys, on that note, goodbye.
Copyright 2024 FSF Podcast. Reference any specific product or entity mentioned on this podcast does not constitute an endorsement or recommendation by FSF Podcast. The views expressed by guests are their own, and their appearance on the program does not imply an endorsement of them or any entity they represent. If you have any questions about this disclaimer, please contact us via email at info@fsfpodcast.com.